Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the brutal, honestly transformative truth behind David Goggins' whole philosophy. We're zeroing in on why relying on motivation is just a massive trap, and why discipline, raw, unfiltered discipline, is literally the only true path to unlocking your unused potential. You're capable of so much more than you think, but spoiler alert, you're never going to get there if you're just waiting around to feel inspired.
Let's just kick things off with a pretty tough question. What happens when your motivation completely disappears? Because let's be real, motivation is a totally fickle friend. It always ghosts you right when things get actually hard. You know the feeling, right? Some days you wake up, you feel super inspired, ready to conquer the world. But other days, you feel tired, maybe a bit lazy, or just broken. If you're relying entirely on motivation to get stuff done, what are you going to do on those bad days? Well, you stop. And honestly, that right there is exactly where the problem lies.
So, that brings us to what we call the motivation trap, and why comfort is actually your worst enemy here. Let's totally shatter this widely held belief about what it really takes to succeed. Look, motivation, it's strictly temporary. It's built entirely on your feelings of inspiration, which is basically a tiny spark that just vanishes the second you feel tired or stressed out. Discipline, on the other hand, is permanent. Why? Because it's forged in action. It means you keep pushing forward regardless of how awful you feel. Average people rely on that fleeting spark of motivation, while exceptional people build rock-solid discipline so they can become literally unstoppable.
And to prove that discipline is a choice, just look at David Goggins' actual starting point. This was absolutely not a guy born with superhuman genetics or a silver spoon. His baseline? He was completely lost. We're talking nearly 300 pounds, broke, highly insecure, stuck in a dead-end job, and heavily traumatized from childhood abuse. He was essentially running on fear and self-hatred, but then he sees a documentary about the Navy SEALs, and instead of making excuses, he makes a hard pivot. He actively decides to voluntarily suffer to rebuild himself from the ground up. He went from completely fearful to completely mentally dominant. Now that is the power of choosing action over your feelings.
The absolute turning point here is realizing this harsh truth. If he doesn't change his life himself, nobody will. Listen, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody owes you success, not your parents, not society, not random luck, and for sure not motivation. You, and only you, are entirely responsible for your habits, your discipline, your mindset, and your future. It's a pretty painful realization at first, but honestly, once you accept it, it becomes incredibly freeing.
All right, so how do we actually do this? Let's talk about the accountability mirror, which is all about facing the brutal truth.
This is a brilliant framework for forging that raw discipline. Here's how the accountability mirror works in 3 simple, but definitely not easy, steps. Step 1, you take a bunch of sticky notes and you write down every single one of your weaknesses, your deep fears, and your biggest goals. Step 2, slap those notes directly onto your mirror. Step 3, every single day, you look yourself in the eyes in that mirror and you force yourself to face the truth. I mean, 0 excuses, no lies, no pointing fingers at anyone else, and absolutely no victim mentality allowed. Real, tangible growth only kicks in when you strip away all the nonsense and start being brutally honest with yourself.
And once you start facing that truth, it's time for the next phase, callousing the mind and actually embracing voluntary suffering.
You see, you have to literally condition your brain for the crazy friction of this journey. Think about it like lifting weights. Lifting heavy iron builds rough calluses on your hands, right? While facing hardship intentionally builds calluses on your brain. Callousing the mind is all about building mental toughness through repeated, voluntary exposure to pain, stress, and just extreme discomfort. Goggins went out of his way to find hard things: extreme workouts, insane long-distance running, training through injuries, sleep deprivation, and no, he didn't do it because he liked suffering. Nobody really likes that. He did it to train his brain to not freak out when things get difficult. And hey, even small daily challenges will start building up that same mental armor.
Now this brings us to one of his most famous concepts, the 40% rule, which is all about pushing past your mental wall.
We've all been there, right? You're in the middle of a brutal workout or pulling a late night on a massive project, and your brain is literally screaming at you to just quit. It's telling you, hey, we're done here, the tank is totally empty. Well, according to Goggins, when you hit that massive wall, you're actually only at about 40% of your true potential. Think about that for a second. That initial 40% is just your used potential, meaning there is a massive 60% sitting right there completely untapped. So why do we almost never access it? Simply put, your brain craves comfort.
It acts like a very overprotective bouncer, telling you to pack it up early just to avoid any pain or struggle. But if you can build the sheer discipline to push past that initial agonizing mental wall, you'll discover a completely different universe of strength that you've just been keeping in reserve this whole time.
So if we all have this massive well of untapped potential, who or what are we actually fighting against? Let's talk about the real enemy.
It is so incredibly easy to blame the economy, your terrible boss, your packed schedule, or just your general circumstances. But the brutal reality, the biggest obstacle in your life is not the outside world. It's your own mind. Most folks spend their entire lives dodging discomfort, terrified of failure, and just seeking convenience wherever they can. They stay completely trapped in this cozy little comfort zone. But remember what we keep coming back to? Real growth only happens when you're uncomfortable. Your real enemy is that sneaky part of your own brain that desperately wants you to stay average.
So how exactly do you defeat an enemy that lives inside your own head? Well, you embrace a concept Goggins calls taking souls. Now, I know that sounds intense, but it basically means mentally dominating challenges and expectations. Look, people are going to expect you to quit. They expect you to fail or just throw in the towel when the going gets tough. But when you just keep pushing forward, right through the pain, when everyone else thinks you're done, you become psychologically unstoppable. Refusing to break is how you assert absolute dominance over whatever challenge is sitting in front of you.
All right, so if you're fired up and want to actually put this into practice, here is your ultimate no BS daily checklist. Number 1, do hard things every single day. Number 2, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Seriously, self-pity destroys growth while taking responsibility creates absolute strength. 3, actively seek discomfort, because that is the only place transformation happens. 4, be brutally honest with yourself. No more blaming others. And 5, our core theme for this entire explainer, build discipline, not motivation. Stop waiting around to feel good before doing what needs to be done. Discipline is the only thing that's going to keep you moving when motivation completely ghosts you.
I really want to leave you with this incredibly powerful thought to chew on. Comfort destroys potential. Pain reveals it. Just remember, this whole battle we've been talking about, it's happening entirely internally. It is a war fought exclusively inside your own mind, between the version of you that just wants an easy, comfortable life and the version of you that is hungry for true greatness. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with one final question. Which side of your mind are you going to choose to train today? Because at the end of the day, the side that wins this internal war is simply the side you choose to feed and train through hard, disciplined action. Nobody is coming to change your life for you. That's entirely on you. So start building that discipline today.